Hi, I'm Spencer Krause. I've been building robots for over 20 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of interesting things, and I've heard a lot of interesting stories. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is a place where my peers and I can relax, have a drink, and talk about some of the crazier things we've seen at work and some of the experiences we've had that have gotten us to where we are today. Subscribe today to join the collaboration. Welcome to the Collaborative Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Krause. Our guest today is Victor Splittgerber. Victor is the founder and CEO of WAKU Robotics, a company specializing in robot logistics and operations. Victor, welcome to the pod.
Hi, Spencer. Nice being here.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, and thanks for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to this collaborative talk.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate you coming on. I think we met through LinkedIn a while ago and just found we hit it off in the first call. And I don't know. I tend to invite people on who are down to earth and seem like they'd be fun to talk to for an hour or more. And so I appreciate you taking me up on it. I'm really excited for this as well.
Yeah, sounds like a good opportunity, and glad that you picked me, that I made a good impression.
Me too. Happy to have you on. So going into it, tell me a bit about what WAKU Robotics does.
Yeah, so we deliver software for robot vendors and service providers that builds the backbone of their robot operations. So what I mean is to manage their service teams, to manage their first level, second level support, and so on. So it's really for servicing and maintenance of robot fleets.
Awesome. What made you decide to go down that road? Like, where did you see a need? How did you get involved in robot fleet ops? And why did you start to found the business? Or why did you decide to found the business?
Yeah, so I founded the company 5 years ago, and we developed multiple products in the meantime. So it's like this typical startup journey where you start in one place, and then we went through multiple cases, and we found actually this nice problem, which is that robot operations is a lot about the robot operators. So a lot of talk is about the robot, which robot is the right robot, and so on. But actually, it's always the people that need to operate and run the robots. And even if those robots are autonomous, there's always a ratio of people to robots, so to say. So, and those people need the right tools to operate fleets of robots. And those fleets can be small, and they can be big. So like smaller fleets are 5 robots, 2, 3, 4, 5 robots. And big fleets are easily 200, 300, 500 robots.
Nice.
And that can be quite effortful to really maintain and run a big fleet.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are some of the ratios of like operator to robot that you see? Because I think for people listening, right, I mean, the idea with a robot is you don't need people at all. And obviously that's not true. I mean, like, stuff breaks. There's edge cases. There's corner cases. And, somebody's got to orchestrate the missions. But I guess just to make it realistic, like what do you actually see in practice for like how many robots can a human typically manage?
That's a good question. I guess it depends a lot on the use cases. So you have those really collaborative robots that run in a factory or in a warehouse. So I'm thinking of pallet moving or so. And there you need much more personnel to operate the robots because you have much more edge cases, as you said, right? And so you need to move stuff out of the way of the robot, or you need to clean sensors more because it's just in this mixed environment also tend to be more dusty and so on. Whereas if you have closed environments, I'm thinking like of this Kiva type system, goods to person systems that are fenced. That is like there you can run with a few people, a fleet of 200-300 robots.
Oh, wow. It's like it's almost 100 to 1, it sounds like, or maybe like 50 to
1. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely doable. And then of course, I mean, like, it also depends on the maturity level of each of the vendors and of the technology. And we are still in the beginning of the robot revolution. So not every vendor is really like super mature, I guess. Like that's kind of the open secret of the industry that, of course, we have all those videos where the robots are just doing their job, as you said, right? And everyone expects, hey, like I put the robot and I don't need to do anything. But in fact, oftentimes there's definitely in the beginning, and then also like continuously effort to run a fleet and to keep it operating at a like at a very efficient level and with a good performance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I remember when I was at Joy Global, like at the beginning of my robotics career, it was considered pretty novel that we could keep a mining shovel from hitting itself, like self-collision avoidance, right? But you wouldn't think of it as a robot, but I mean, that's what the robotics group was working on, among other features. And so, I mean, they've gotten more advanced since then, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's really like this mundane stuff that you have like one robot running around and then it needs to navigate around obstacles. I mean, like there's so many videos out there where it works really nicely, but in practice it's much harder than what it looks like in a video or so. And then if you have those larger fleets, you have to coordinate a lot of actors, a lot of agents, and there's a lot of dependencies. There's also a lot of redundancies, so that makes the technology much more robust. But ultimately, it's about giving the people the right tools to manage such a fleet, right? So like oftentimes you don't really have also the knowledge and the people, the talent available to say, okay, like now I have a fleet of robots, or like I bring in this technology and then I hire some people to run the robots. But what you rather want to do is to upskill your people that are already there, which makes a ton of sense. That's why you bring in the robots in the first place, to make your people more efficient. And then the question is, what tools can you give them to do this job of running the robots? And that's where we step in.
Did you know that Collaborative with Spencer Krause now has a merch store? Please go to cwskmerch.com for the latest in CWSK styles. You can get a hoodie, like the one I'm wearing, t-shirts, hell, we even have whiskey glasses. Everything in the store has custom art that our team worked really, really hard on, so go ahead and show your support for them, me, and the rest of the CWSK team by going to cwskmerch.com today. Better yet, support yourself and use discount code PODCAST10, all one word, all uppercase, for 10% off your entire order. Thanks for your support and enjoy the rest of the show. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is sponsored by SKA Robotics. If you're in the market for elite field robotics expertise, please consider hiring SKA Robotics. They sponsor this podcast and solve some of the toughest engineering problems in the world. SKA Robotics can be found at skarobotics.com. So what are some of the features that you guys bring to the table then to do that? Like, in my mind, it's probably like a top-down map. You've probably got the ability to teleoperate different machines, analytics, like...
So it's right that we have analytics. So what we do is really giving like a digital checklist, for example. So that's kind of the foundation, and what it means is that a robot, like if there's a maintenance to be done, you know exactly what to do. So imagine, like, there's a lot of sensors on a robot, like for collision, for navigation, LiDAR sensors, and so on, and those need to be cleaned. And like then from an OEM perspective, it's like those cases where a customer calls and says, hey, like my robot stopped. What can I do? And then they're like, did you try to switch it on off? Did you clean the sensors? And then, okay, yeah, like this solves the case. And so that's kind of how we got into the topic. And it's really, I mean, like it sounds stupid, but it's like that's like every vendor can tell you the exact same stories, like of those easy to solve cases actually. And then that's where we started, right? And like robots deliver a lot of data, so it's like very good to work with from a engineering perspective. And so what we do is like digitalizing all the incident handling, all the maintenance, and then connect this to the data of the robot. So now imagine, like the robot stops with an error obstacle detected, or like with a error message from the LiDAR. Instead of the operator calling the OEM saying, "Hey, my robot stops. What can I do?" We receive the error code from the robot and push automatically to the operator, and like do this 3 steps: clean the sensor, stop the robot, and get it back on track on a position where you can restart the robot and where you can relocate the robot. So and then like for the operator it's good because he immediately got a solution for his problem, and then for the OEM it's also good because they don't get a ticket and they can really save on service cost. And so that's how we got into the topic, and then we built on top of this core idea, so to say.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm a huge fan of digital checklists, so I mean, I think they're great.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's kind of the core, and then of course like you have videos. You can use it on VR glasses. So like what you can do is then you put on VR glasses. You have the robot in front of you, and then you can really like go through it through a maintenance like step by step. And oftentimes you have up like weekly maintenances, monthly maintenance, half year, and so on. So like there are a lot of those schedules that you need to get right, and then I mean like in a simple case you do it on a weekly basis, but in a more advanced case you do it based on actual utilization, or like based on really like predictive maintenance, so that you analyze the robot behavior and like takes the right measures proactively.
Okay, so depending on like a series of circumstances, so like X number of hours on Y sensor, or like you're getting an FFT reading that's irregular in certain frequencies, and you have an idea what that might mean in the predictive case, or it's been 1 week since your last maintenance in the most rudimentary case. You guys have different subsets of that digital checklist that become available, and you have like a customized checklist for whatever the robot's likely to be experiencing that day.
Exactly.
Cool.
So that's where we're coming from, and then now out of the perspective from a robot vendor, right? They have oftentimes fleets, especially if they're scaling and around the globe. Like they have. We work with international companies like Chinese from US, and then they have fleets in Europe. They have one in Portugal, then they have one in Mexico, then have like one in Vietnam also, and then you need a local operator to do the job. So you can't fly your own technical staff, like for 10 hours to do some maintenance. So that's then the next level of challenges, so to say, when you scale and when you work with local partners. And there, like you need those simple guidelines, and to secure that those guys really find a solution to the problems, and second, also the performance of those vendors will be measured based on the job that the service provider does locally.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, if you can convey that instruction set in a way that's intuitive to whoever's there, like you'd think you could put them to work even if they don't necessarily know everything about the robot. So that's really cool.
No, absolutely. And then the other thing is like out of a perspective of a robot vendor, you put parts into a robot, right? Like certain batches of parts, and then you want to analyze, say, like which batch of parts break quicker than another, like, or do I need to or I try to replace one set of sensors with another vendor, and like how do they perform in the field, and so on. So like all of that we can enable with our tool, because we do all the spare parts management as well, and then we deliver this whole set of functionalities that we give into the hands of a vendor or service provider to then really like run fleets on a global scale.
So that's where the analytics part kicks in, and you're able to kind of A/B test different stuff that you'd stick in that machine, or
it's
causes a failure, or like what times a day
Yeah,
is it failing? Is it a sunlight problem?
yeah. It's like that plus the manual input. So I guess it's fairly easy or easier with robots to just analyze the behavior of the robots based on the data that it's delivering. But like the added value that we bring to the table is that we have this manual interface. So like that you have the local operator and we guide them to, for example, take a picture of the scene or so, or like with their smartphone, with their tablet, so that we can enrich the robot data with the manual input, with a description of the scene, with a picture of the scene, stuff that you wouldn't get from the robot data.
What's the incentive to the on-site person to do that? Because I feel like that's intuitively, it seems like the sort of thing where you might have a compliance issue where you're like, hey, take a picture, and they're like, fuck you, I'm busy, I don't want to do that right now. Like how do you get around that?
I mean, like that's really like when it's about creating tickets or so, or proof of work. It's I like when it comes to on-site servicing and on first level, it's not always the end user who operates the robot. Sometimes you have service providers in between, right? And sometimes those service providers are paid by the robot vendor. So, like you actually do want to have a proof of work, what they have done and how long it took and so on. And then, like if it is about tickets, for example, it's very, I mean, like it's oftentimes a requirement to have a very good description of the case together with pictures.
So it's just a way for the operator in that case to close out a ticket, and the incentive is that the ticket's not hanging over them anymore. In the case of a vendor, then they just want to show what they did and collect data because it's in their business interest, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So you're right that the incentive of an end user, so to say, is if they create a ticket, that they have it fairly complete to really get this case solved quickly, so to say. And then for the vendor, it's like, okay, like one is the ticket, but the other is...
Yeah, it's more clear to me for the vendor than the end user. Like for me, I feel like if I'm the end user and I'm like bringing these robots in to make my life better and they're giving me chores, I'm like, hey, why am I doing this? Like, I thought these robots were supposed to take work away from me and not give me more work, and so...
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of issues that it's not necessarily a technical problem that a robot is not performing as well, right? It's oftentimes related to processes. It's environmental issues. So, for example, say there are bumps in the road or in the pathway of the robots, also, or like stuff standing around, people crossing the robot, people damaging the robot. So, like there's so many edge cases why a robot is not performing as well, where people create tickets, and so then it's in the interest of a customer or the end user to give a fairly good description to get the robot really performing good.
That makes sense. So they're just providing data so they can get their problem solved effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Cool. That's good insight to have. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then like the other thing is like it's interesting that you just mentioned it with the picture because like so many vendors, what they report is they get called in the middle of the night or so with a problem of a robot, but then like they don't deliver really details. So what I mean is, for example, like an operator in the night shift says, "Hey, the robot is not running," and then that's it, like. But then it really is the case, right? And then the operator, the robot vendor says, "Yeah, okay, but what I need is, like I need like, is there any error codes? Can you take a picture of the robot? Can you describe what exactly happened? Like, where did it happen? What was the behavior observed, and all of that?" So like really like trying to get an understanding of the scene, why a problem occurred and what the problem really was. And there we actually like now working with a tool based on large language models that help like collecting those information. So what it means also from a robot vendor perspective is now, like, either really their technical team from smaller startups answering, like those calls saying, hey, like, can you give me information on this scene? Can you give me this information? Can you give me a picture of the scene? So instead of the technical personnel doing that, it's doing an AI that we deliver together with our system that then helps to collect the right information.
Interesting. I mean, I would think that would also be the advantage of just having an international team, like it sounds like you do, with different deployments, is you could find someone in another time zone that's awake, even if it's your night shift, to respond quickly. But I don't know if that's how your platform works. I'm just speculating. So, sorry.
Oh yeah, so it's pretty close actually. So like because you're right, we have at the core we have our software, so to say, with the functionalities that I partly just described. But then on top of that, we have a platform with a lot of partners. And that then can also be local service providers, so that we can provide service in Florida as much as in Portugal and or in Vietnam. And that is like one, I guess, answering calls or so is much easier, like, I mean, unless it's really local language. But then, like, even if you use an AI system, that we can automate a lot of things, right? With really like the advances in large language models and generative AI. Like, this really is like that we rethinking how first level hotline support really works. So there, like, you can do
a lot
of automation.
So what that implies, if you say first level, is that you've got an escalation model. So like if that doesn't solve it, you don't keep someone there forever. It's just a way to reduce the load on kind of level 1 operators.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we first send the AI, like looking if they can solve the case. If that doesn't work, we have a person in the back that can take a call, and then they can escalate further either to the technical team or to a local service provider that can go on site.
Yeah, but I would think if it's the middle of the night, then like someone in a different country might make more sense because they're probably awake.
Yeah, I mean,
like if you've got Florida, Portugal, and Vietnam, I mean, those are spaced pretty far apart in terms of time zone. Like you're always going to have somebody awake between all those places.
Yeah, I mean, like on a practical level, if you have really one deployment at Vietnam and you have 10 deployments in Florida, you might just want to, like keep one operator instead. And again, like there, we have seen that we can take approximately 80% of all cases that an operator has. We can automatically handle with the AI.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Like 20% is with humans in the loop, so to say. And then it's like in the end, it's not that much, right? If you have like if it is a small fleet, they don't cause that much tickets.
Fair enough. No, I mean that's interesting. Well, hey, I really appreciate this. I think we're getting close to like a time we should probably start winding down. Is there anything you want to plug or like a message you want to leave viewers with, kind of as we near the end of the episode?
I mean, anyone who has an interest in servicing, also if there are service providers. So like what we do is really we help, especially OEMs, to scale globally. So that's like from a software perspective, where we give this software tooling, but also we come in with a network of service providers, so that like if there's a robot vendor that says, hey, I have this new client and I'm thinking about how to organize servicing for that one, we can help with that. And then we have a free trial version on our website, so anyone who got interest can check out our website at WAKU-robotics.com. and can get a 14 days free trial.
Well, hey, Victor, sounds really awesome. I know who I'll be thinking of for those sorts of problems. And I appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Spencer.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining us today. If you've made it this far, chances are you'll like other episodes too. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. Subscribe today to get notified when the latest episodes release and support the channel. Collaborative with Spencer Krause is sponsored by SKA Robotics. If you're in the market for elite field robotics expertise, please consider hiring SKA Robotics. They sponsor this podcast and solve some of the toughest engineering problems in the world. SKA Robotics can be found at skarobotics.com. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.